run this cable, see? Right? And there's a button on the side. We're getting a new filament for it. Button on the side, you press it and it gets orange, right? To light your cigarette.
Barry Weiss walked away from the most-watched show in A&E history twice and nearly died between those two exits. He built a $10 million fortune, survived a motorcycle crash that put him in intensive care for 2 months, and still managed to come back at 75 years old in 2026. So what really happened to Barry Weiss after Storage Wars? And why does the full story look nothing like what fans assumed? Join us as we find out what really happened to Barry Weiss after Storage Wars. The millionaire who was already done. Before Storage Wars existed, before A&E came calling, and before millions of viewers knew his name, Barry Weiss had already made his money and walked away from the business that made it. Barry grew up in California's San Fernando Valley, in a working-class household where money was tight, and scrounging for value was a daily habit. As a teenager, he took every job available, mowing lawns, washing cars, and vending food at Dodger Stadium. Those early jobs hitch fast and close a deal. After high school, Barry moved through a series of blue-collar gigs before landing work on a second-hand merchandise liquidation dock in 1972. That was the turning point. He discovered storage unit auctions, realized he had a sharp instinct for spotting undervalued items inside them, and never looked back. He began buying unclaimed lots, stacks of old merchandise, returned retail goods, repossessed freight, and reselling everything he could move and keeping the pieces that caught his eye. Over the next 2 decades, he built that side hustle into a full operation. Warehouses across Southern California. Crews are processing merchandise. Consulting contracts with retail giants like Walmart and Target, helping them liquidate unsellable inventory while quietly acquiring the best pieces for himself. He also opened a retail storefront, Nugget Sporting Goods, in the San Fernando Valley in 1988, which became a local landmark for sports memorabilia collectors. But the real foundation of his wealth came from a different business entirely. For more than 25 years, Barry and his brother Joey ran Northern Produce, a wholesale fruit and vegetable import-export company that their grandfather had originally founded. But it was the engine behind everything. When Barry eventually decided he had had enough of it, he sold his shares for a significant sum and officially retired, before Storage Wars was even a concept. He spent his post-retirement years doing exactly what he had always done privately: collecting motorcycles, rare cars, antiques. He became close friends with Jesse James, the customizer and founder of West Coast Choppers, and eventually became godfather to him. That relationship landed Barry on television for the first time in 2004, when he appeared alongside Jesse James in the Discovery Channel special Motorcycle Mania III, years before Storage Wars launched. Nobody just knew his name yet. The connection to Storage Wars came through a friendship, not a casting call. Tom Beers, a television producer and narrator who became the executive producer of Storage Wars, was an old friend of Barry's. Beers knew Barry had never actually bought a storage unit competitively before, but he also knew Barry's personality, his collection instincts, and his ability to hold a room. He invited Barry to join the show. Barry said yes, more or less on a whim. When Storage Wars premiered in December 2010, Barry arrived on screen as something the format had not seen before. A buyer who was clearly already wealthy, clearly not dependent on the show for income, and clearly there because he found the whole thing entertaining. That financial independence shaped everything about how he played the game. A 2012 lawsuit filed by co-star Dave Hester would later reveal that Barry earned $25,000 per episode, over $650,000 per season, before bonuses. For Barry, that was not the point. He had been richer than that long before A&E called. He walked into the hottest show on cable already a millionaire. So why did leaving it cost him more than anyone expected? Exit, spin-offs, and the slow fade. By season 2, Storage Wars had become the most watched program in A&E network history, pulling 5.1 million viewers for its premiere. Barry was the breakout. He showed up to auctions in retrofitted vehicles, brought psychics and night vision goggles to storage units, deployed a remote-controlled helicopter camera to scout lockers before bidding, and delivered one-liners that made co-stars and viewers alike laugh out loud. He was not the most aggressive buyer on the lot. He was the most watchable one. His fan base was intense, particularly among women. A source close to him described how, during filming, women regularly approached co-star Dave Hester just to pass their phone numbers to Barry. He was a collector who happened to be on television, and that distinction showed. He openly admitted that he made less money than his co-stars because he refused to part with most of what he found. The goal was never profit. It was the hunt. He stayed through season 4. Then, in June 2013, Barry announced he was done. His reasoning was simple and entirely in character. He wanted to leave while the show was still popular. He had had enough. He went back to what he called being a world-class slacker, traveling, collecting, riding motorcycles, and living on the fortune he had built long before Storage Wars entered the picture. A&E did not let him go quietly. In February 2014, the network announced a spin-off, Buried Treasure, built entirely around Barry. 8 episodes aired. The broader audience did not show up in the numbers A&E needed, and the show was canceled. Barry's appeal on Storage Wars came from friction, from the contrast between his laid-back style and the competitive pressure of bidding against aggressive rivals. Without that friction, without Dave Hester baiting him, without the stakes of a live auction, Barry's charm was still there, but the engine that powered it was gone. He was a scene stealer by nature. A solo show removed the scenes worth stealing. A second attempt came in 2015 with Storage Wars, Barry Strikes Back. 10 episodes. Barry and his close friend Kenny Crossley revisited memorable moments from Storage Wars, mixing commentary with new short adventures. It performed adequately for its core audience, but did not expand beyond it, and was not renewed. 2 spin-offs, 2 cancellations. Barry did not disappear entirely. In 2019, right before everything changed, he appeared in a documentary called Beverly Hills Garage, The Bruce Meyer Project, about real estate investor and renowned car collector Bruce Meyer. It was a world Barry had been part of privately for years. Rare vehicles, serious collectors, significant money. The show had not manufactured him. It had simply pointed a camera at what was already there. By early 2019, Barry was in his late 60s, retired from television, still collecting, still riding motorcycles, and living comfortably in his Laughlin Park home in Los Angeles, one of the city's oldest and most private residential enclaves. He had his cars, including a collection reportedly worth $500,000. He had his antiques, his friendships, his freedom. Life after Storage Wars looked, from the outside, exactly like Barry had planned it. Then came April. 2 canceled shows, a comfortable retirement, a Laughlin Park mansion, and then, on a Wednesday afternoon in April 2019, a car pulled out of a parking space. What happened next would put him in the ICU for 2 months. So what actually went wrong? April 2019, the crash that changed everything. On April 24, 2019, Barry Weiss and his friend Jamie Robinson were riding motorcycles through the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles. It was an ordinary afternoon ride. Jamie was the founder of MotoGeo, a well-known motorcycle travel channel, and the two had ridden together many times before. What happened next was not unusual in the way motorcycle accidents happen: sudden, fast, and without warning. The vehicle came out of a parking bay and into their path. Both riders collided with the rear of the vehicle. Jamie, posting from a hospital bed shortly afterward, described his own injuries: a broken knee, elbow, and wrist as the lucky outcome. Barry, he wrote, was much worse: serious chest trauma, serious leg trauma, the kind of injuries that put a 68-year-old man in intensive care. TMZ obtained the actual 911 call from the driver of the car. On the recording, the driver reported being hit from behind and described emergency responders already attending to someone on the street. Jamie later shared photos and footage from the crash scene on social media, including video of Barry being loaded into an ambulance. His Storage Wars co-stars responded immediately. Laura and Dan Dotson, Casey Nizoda, and others posted publicly, asking fans to send support. Barry was taken directly to the hospital and placed in intensive care. He remained there for 2 months. During that time, he underwent multiple surgeries and procedures to repair internal damage, reconstruct his back, and address a fractured femur. Sources close to him told TMZ that he was alert between surgeries and focused on getting home, but the road was long. And then it got longer. Reports emerged, later confirmed by outlets covering his recovery, that Barry had also suffered a stroke during his time in the hospital. That detail has rarely been discussed publicly, even by Barry himself. But it is part of what happened, and it changes the scale of what he eventually overcame. 2 months in intensive care, multiple major surgeries, and a stroke represent the kind of medical ordeal that ends careers, reshapes lives, and leaves permanent marks. Barry was 68 years old. He had already stepped away from television once by choice. There was every reason to believe it was simply the end of a chapter. Instead, during his recovery, he took on a brand ambassador role for Sherwood Valley Casino in Willits, Northern California. The arrangement gave him something to do, a reason to stay connected to the public, and a platform that did not require the physical demands of production. He appeared in marketing campaigns, showed up at casino events, and stayed visible on his own terms while his body rebuilt itself. It was a quiet, careful return to relevance, nothing like the entrances he was known for. By 2020 and into 2021, Barry was on his feet. He had survived the crash, the surgeries, the stroke, and the long, grinding work of rehabilitation. He had a $10 million net worth, a historic home in Los Angeles, a car collection, a godson named Jesse James, 2 children, Jack and Julie, and reportedly a young grandson also named Jack. He had rebuilt after harder things than a canceled spin-off. The question was not whether Barry Weiss would find a way back. The question was how he would make the entrance. He survived 2 months in the ICU and a stroke. So how exactly did Barry Weiss choose to come back? The flamethrower entrance and the return. On November 2nd, 2021, Season 14 of Storage Wars premiered on A&E. The opening scene showed an unfamiliar vehicle rolling slowly onto an auction lot. It was a 1939 Lincoln Zephyr, heavily customized, low to the ground, finished in a dark metallic color, and fitted with a flamethrower exhaust system. The cast watched it arrive. Nobody knew who was behind the wheel. The car itself had a history that matched Barry's taste perfectly. The Lincoln Zephyr, nicknamed Scrape, was originally built by customizer Terry Cook. It sold at auction in 1999 for $250,000, spent years on display inside an automotive museum, and was eventually purchased by Barry for $55,000. He had not just picked a dramatic vehicle for his comeback. He had found the deal inside the drama, which was exactly the kind of thing Barry Weiss had always done. When the window came down and his co-stars saw his face, the reactions were genuine. Barry deadpanned that he had been working with a bidding coach, had completely cut out arugula, and felt like a born-again buyer. He was 70 years old. Everything from the previous 2 years, the ambulance, the ICU, the surgeries, the long months of rehabilitation, had led to this parking lot. And he arrived at a storage auction in a museum piece with a flamethrower attached to it. His return for season 14, which ran through 2021 and 2022, was warmly received by longtime fans and introduced him to viewers who had found the show after his original run. His presence shifted the dynamic on the lot, his unpredictability, his refusal to bid like everyone else, and his genuine disinterest in the money made him a counterweight to the more competitive buyers around him. Co-star Ivy Calvin, known as the King since season 3, was openly frustrated and openly delighted at the same time. Season 15 followed in 2023, with 24 episodes airing and concluding in August of that year. Barry appeared throughout, continuing the pattern he had established in season 14. Unpredictable bids, unusual vehicles, and a running commentary on everything happening around him. The Storage Wars fandom wiki now officially lists Barry as a cast member from seasons 1 through 4 and from season 14 to present. The 2-decade gap in the middle is simply part of his record now. But then came season 16. The 16th season of Storage Wars premiered on June 7, 2025, with a notable change. The show moved to an hour-long format and welcomed back Dave Hester, absent since season 12. Barry Weiss was not listed in the cast. A&E did not announce his absence. Barry offered no public explanation. Fans who had watched his season 14 entrance on a flamethrower-equipped 1939 Lincoln now had no idea whether the exit was permanent or temporary. The speculation was understandable. Barry was 74 years old. He had already come back once after a near-fatal accident. He had 2 canceled spin-offs behind him. He had a net worth that meant he had absolutely no financial reason to return to production. The reasonable assumption for much of 2025 was that season 15 had been his quiet finale, a last run on his own terms, without a dramatic goodbye, which would have been completely in character. Between seasons, he was spotted in August 2025 visiting Tulare, California, where he caught up with the owner of Tulare Meat Locker and Sausage Company. Casual, low profile, moving around on his own schedule as he always had. He skipped season 16 without a word. So what happened when season 17 cameras finally rolled in 2026? Season 17, age 75, and where he stands in 2026. Storage Wars Season 17 premiered on February 28, 2026 on A&E. Barry Weiss was in the cast. At 75 years old, after skipping an entire season without explanation, after 2 months in intensive care, after a stroke, after 2 canceled spin-offs, after walking away from the hottest show on cable by choice, he came back. Again, the network described his presence in season 17 as adding unpredictability to the auctions, which was the network's formal way of saying that Barry Weiss showed up and did whatever Barry Weiss does. His return settled a question that had hung over season 16. The absence had not been a goodbye. Whether it was health-related, schedule-related, or simply a decision he made the way he makes most decisions, because he felt like it, the result was the same. Barry's cast record now spans from the show's debut in 2010 through its 17th season in 2026, with a period away in the middle that he has never fully explained and apparently feels no need to. The financial picture in 2026 is straightforward. Barry's estimated net worth sits at $10 million. The bulk of that figure predates Storage Wars entirely. It came from the produce business he and his brother ran for 25 years, from the liquidation operations he built across Southern California, from decades of buying and reselling before reality television existed. The show added to it significantly. The Hester lawsuit revealed Barry earned $25,000 per episode, each season paying out just over $800,000 in total. His personal life has remained private throughout. He is divorced. His two children, Jack and Julie, have stayed out of the public eye entirely. He is reportedly a grandfather, a young boy, also named Jack. He maintains his home in Laughlin Park, one of Los Angeles's historic neighborhoods, where the property is valued between $3 and $4 million. His car collection, which has included custom-built vehicles, museum pieces, and rare American classics, is estimated to be worth around $500,000. He still collects antiques, still rides motorcycles, and still carries the title of Godfather to Jesse James. What has not changed across all of it is the basic structure of how Barry operates. He decides what he wants to do, he does it on his own timeline, and he does not explain himself. He left Storage Wars in 2013 because he was ready to leave. He returned in 2021 because he was ready to return. He skipped season 16 without comment. He came back for season 17 without fanfare. Each of those decisions was consistent with the same person who sold his share of a multi-decade family business when he got tired of it, then spent his retirement years becoming one of the most recognizable figures on cable television, purely by accident. The Dave Hester lawsuit in 2012 alleged that producers salted storage units with planted items to manufacture dramatic finds. Whether or not that was true, it pointed to something real about Barry's role on the show. He was the one cast member whose entertainment value had nothing to do with what was inside the lockers. He could show up to an auction in a 1939 Lincoln with a flamethrower exhaust and make the lot more interesting before a single unit was opened. The items were secondary. He was the draw. As of 2026, that remains true. Barry Weiss is 75 years old. He has survived more than most people his age, built more than most people at any age, and returned to a television show more times than almost anyone who left one at its peak. He is back in A&E. He is still collecting. And if the last 15 years are any guide, whatever happens next, nobody will see it coming, including Barry. Why did Barry skip season 16 without a word? Was it health, personal, or just his way? And when he finally leaves Storage Wars for the last time, what would that exit look like? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen.